were laid off at that time. And so why those were chosen was because they're funded by tribal dollars. And we have tribal funds available, which is our Fortune Bay distributions. There are certain programs that do, we can draw money down on yet, and that is housing, I believe, and where's Kim? Head Start is fully funded, and some other programs. Anyway, there are certain programs that we can get money on. So those programs will remain as is. Health and Human Services does not get any funding from the Tribal Council. However, they are, they use their IHS compact dollars and the third-party billing monies to operate. The IHS funding, we did draw down on that on the last day, which was the 21st of December, and drew what we could from the Indian Health Service. Since that time, we've had no funding from IHS. And somebody had asked, you know, can the clinic third-party funding, can the clinic survive on that? Well, it's a 50-50. Half of it is funded by IHS and the other half is funded by third party. So our collections with third party aren't to the point where it could be self-sufficient on its own without IHS. So the other, they've been frozen since the 21st along with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And the BIA is our tribal police, our officers, not our tribal police. Our BIA officers are federal, their offices are shut down, and they are working with no pay right now. The council does fund a couple positions, and our new officer, Miko, our drug dog, and he's also apprehension and tracking dog. He's a tribal officer, so we do have some tribal officers, and that's one of the priorities that we deemed was law enforcement, because we need law enforcement. That's a high priority. So then after that, we met on, I believe it was January 14th? No, 7th? January 7th, excuse me. And it was the next Monday anyway. And it just so happened that I was gone to St. Paul and Shane was gone. So David and Trav and Peter, the chief, attended the meeting. And at that time, the senior management was going to give a list of employees that would be recommended or that they would look at considering laying off. On Tuesday, after that meeting, there was that Monday afternoon, I received a email from Louise, and it asked if I could do a poll for 32 hours a week. And I told her I wasn't comfortable in doing that at that time because I thought we should talk to staff, because I thought they meant 32 hours across the board for everybody. And so I said, I don't know. I was in travel status at that time, and I said, I don't know what happened at the meeting, so I didn't do it. Well, once she got the minutes typed up from the meeting, she sent them to me, and it was for the council themselves to go to 32 hours a week, so a cut in our pay. So we did a poll, and that was approved. So the council did cut their salaries by 20%. Then I did email Miranda and ask her for a listing of the people that were going to be recommended for layoff, or what the directors had come up with. And we got that Tuesday afternoon, and come Monday morning we were going to have, or Wednesday morning we were going to have an all-staff meeting at 9 with all the RTC staff to update them on this, but it was actually a regular meeting that we had already scheduled anyway, so it worked out really well. So when the council got together that morning, we were kind of looking at the list, and there were certain things that we had questions on. And so we had the staff meeting at 9, and then it was recommended that we meet with each department after that staff meeting, and then we also met with Fortune Bay after the staff meeting to see why they came up with the plans they came up with, and how did they determine which staff they were recommending for layoff. Or reduced hours too, I might say reduced hours, because some staff did take reduced hours. And so we did that. We could only get through maybe a handful of the programs, so we rescheduled some of the programs for the next day. And we met with those programs. We also that morning did come up with a list of priorities that the council has for the for this shutdown session. And of course, law enforcement is high, health and human services and emergency services, elders, transportation, roads, transportation also meaning public transit, the Big Woods Transit, and other areas, court, judicial, those types of areas. So we did come up with that. And then Thursday afternoon, we started talking about the cuts and those individuals. Now, granted that in our personnel policy, it does state that the directors can lay people off in their departments. However, at our staff meeting, I think there was a question from the council and also from staff, who's taking charge of this, who's taking ownership, and you know, how were the decisions made and who approved them. And so at that point, it was decided that the council said they would take ownership of the cuts that were made, and that was relayed to the staff in a memo that was sent out on Friday. Even though it is against our personnel policy, because this is something that we've never had to deal with in this big of capacity. The shutdowns are usually a day or two or a week at the most, but this is really something else. And we really don't know what to expect with President Trump, because he's got the pen authority. And so we were waiting for we thought maybe something would happen before the new Congress got in, but no, it didn't. So, but anyway, so the council did go through the list on Thursday afternoon. We still hadn't made a decision, and so we waited till Friday. Shane was gone with the school board and had other business to tend to, so he was on leave. But he did get a listing of the staff that was finally recommended for layoff or reduced hours. And so the council did as a whole vote on this matter, and that's kind of what happened to this point. I do want to let you know, though, that on this memo, there are currently all services are operating as usual, and they are still available 5 days a week. So like the clinic, housing, education, the radio, public works, DNR, this center, and human resources are our HR department. Current services that had adjustments is, of course, our Big Woods Transit program. They were scaled back with limited routes, and the contact number for route updates and information is 888-757-1540. They did scale back their dial-a-ride rides from, I think they could go, I don't know how many days, but they cut them down to two days a week. That's for people like in Net Lake, if they wanted to go to Virginia grocery shopping, they can do a dial-a-ride. The Heritage Center is going to remain closed until further notice. However, there are at times environmental things that come through, either from the mines or road work or anything that may need a TIPO or someone to review, so someone will be doing that on an as-needed basis. The fitness centers in Net Lake and Vermilion will remain closed until further notice. There is entry available by existing key fob, but only at both locations. So we have a program where people can purchase cards to access the fitness centers at any time of the day and night. And so there is a $30 fee for that. So we'll be setting up some information regarding the contact, who the contact will be, if someone's still interested in doing that. A lot of staff do that through payroll deductions, but we'll be getting some information out on those key fobs for the fitness center. And then the Boys and Girls Clubs also have been closed until further notice. And our realty leasing has been scaled back. Information can be left with the front desk either in Net Lake or Vermilion, and it will be reviewed weekly. Our grant manager was laid off. Some of our directors took a reduction of hours. We had in our first realm, I would say, approximately, 12 people that were laid off at first. That's just an estimate. And then the next round was 25 or more that took a reduction of hours. And then there were 7 or 8 that were laid off the second round. the council decided that at this time, it's been kind of very hectic and somewhat of a whirlwind situation, so we decided to wait now until February 4th. We're going to meet February 4th in hopes that, number one, the government will open, but at February 4th's meeting, that's where we'll be discussing further cuts. And so I think that what we're trying to do is get information out to the community so they know what's going on and if they have any questions for us or some of the directors that are here. So as is, everything will remain the same, just with regards to the Heritage Center, the fitness centers, and Boys and Girls Club and leasing. Our grant manager was laid off, but she was called back to do a grant. So there's situations like that where people may get called back. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at right now. Any questions, just feel free to ask. Or if the council has any other comments.
I think to talk a little bit about the stuff that's been going on Facebook, how they worried that they're not going to be called back. Am I going to have a job once this is all said and done? Is that we don't know what the federal government's going to fund. We don't know if they're going to fund this grant or that grant. We don't know. It's not that we're going to say, no, let's not call these people back. Well, we're going to call these people back. No, that's not what we're going to do. We got to wait and see what the federal government does, then decide from there. Then if they don't fund certain grants, then that's where we need to sit down and say, do we want to fund this or can we fund this? So that's what we've been trying to deal with. And then, I know that a comment a band member made to me was that they felt it was unfair for the first ones to be laid off, and the second ones to be laid off a month later. They felt that was unfair, and I listened to that. And I thought I'll just pass it on to you.
Okay. Any comments or questions? We're ready to answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir. No. Energy assistance, and the question was energy assistance cut? And Tracy Dagan is in that position, and she'll remain full-time, and everything will be the same for that, because a lot of that is state funding, and we also realize that energy assistance is a much-needed program, especially now in the winter season. So that will remain as is. That's a high priority. The elders are a high priority. Our feeding program, as an example, our Meals on Wheels, or our elderly nutrition program is very essential for the elders, so that's still in place. Food distribution, there was a question and answers, and there's questions, and sometimes answers come down periodically. One of the things we were looking at with food distribution is they only had enough money until, I believe, the end of January. So they were looking at laying staff off there or reduced hours. But then Wendy, our food distribution clerk, called the funding agency, because right now under food distribution we do not have a signed contract. And we weren't able to draw down money. But when Wendy called somebody that would answer the phone, because USDA is shut down, when someone would answer the phone, she finally got a hold of somebody, and they said, no, we'll fix it. We didn't know you didn't get your money. So they got to draw down their money, and now they have enough money to last until the end of January. But they did check with the warehouse, and the warehouse has enough food because they get, Net Lake's food distribution program gets deliveries monthly, and they have enough food on hand till March. Food stamps, or SNAP, it's now called, the EBT cards. I was talking with Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and the state is also trying to help in whatever way they can, the state government, because we have our EBT cards for those that are on assistance. Those cards are printed by the federal government. So the state is also struggling with some of the functions that the federal government is not doing. But the state said they would help us in every aspect that they could. but we just need to let them know what our needs are. I also did talk with Tina Smith, Senator Smith, yesterday, and she said it's really frustrating because they've come up with a way to open the government, but Mitch McConnell won't even address it and let it be presented unless there's something in there for the wall. So, but she also made a plug for Bois Forte, actually, on MSNBC Good Morning Joe with regards to our law enforcement not being paid. And so we're trying to put Indian country out there because I think a lot of people forget about us. And it is a trust responsibility and a treaty responsibility that they need to honor. Aaron Payment is the chairman of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe, and he used to be, I'm not sure if he still is, but the vice president of the National Congress of American Indians. And he was testifying yesterday in D.C. because right now the IHS and the BIA are discretionary funds according to Congress. We're not mandated programs such as Social Security, the VA, and those programs. So IHS and BIA are not mandatory, which they should be. So he was going out to testify on that and how this government shutdown is impacting Indian country, because I think there's a misconception out there that all tribes are rich through gaming, which is not the point. That's not happening here. There's weekly or daily calls with, for example, Indian Health Service. Just as an example, the other day I listened in on part of a call, and the Oglala Sioux tribe had enough funding for 2 weeks, and then they were going to have to shut down their ambulance service. And we know how critical that is for anybody, an ambulance service. So our ambulance service is okay on net. You guys are okay over here with your ambulance service and emergency services. So those are just things are coming down daily sometimes. So things do change kind of rather rapidly, and some don't.
Also this morning, I got information that was put in the Sabi Daily News this morning. It was an article that was put out by Governor Tim Walz, and he told the press that the state is footing the bill to keep the government going, and that they aren't guaranteed that the feds are going to repay them once the shutdown is over. He also said that he didn't know how long that they'd be able to continue to do this state helping fund. And right now he said they spent over $100 million in costs of the federal programs, and the state of Minnesota is kind of doing exactly what the bands are, and our band is doing right now. And currently there's around 6,000 federal employees that have been furloughed or are working without pay. And also those of you that are, as Kathy mentioned, the EBT cards. But right now the Human Services Commissioner has announced that they will be loading the EBT cards for the month of February, but cannot assure if the assistance can be offered after that. So people that are using EBT cards should use them wisely and stock up on their basic needs that they're going to need for who knows how long the shutdown's going to last. So, the other guys own thought.
The comment was made at the meeting this morning. Our question is, we need to keep track of how many band member employees we lay off, and also how many non-band member employees we lay off. It ain't like we're picking just our band members. We're looking at the positions and if they're essential or non-essential. And how can we best conserve and stretch our tribal dollars to continue our services to our band members? And it's also important to note that how many band members we are keeping on, we're keeping them working, and how many non-band members we're keeping working. We need to look at both sides of this, not just one. I just wanted to share that.
In this morning's meeting we had in Net Lake, I did make a statement regarding the RTC meetings. We were going to have our meetings in Net Lake, because we were charged at Fortune Bay, but I want to correct that statement with Fortune Bay. The room fee is $125, and then there is, we have food and coffee and those types of things, so the total, and then sometimes, depending on if we go through lunch, we do pay for lunch. So that's the fees that are associated with the RTC meetings. And so, you know, there's always ways to negotiate something. And that's what we did with Fortune Bay. One thing that we met with Fortune Bay about is, first off, we asked if, or we didn't ask, we basically sat down and met and discussed this and agreed that the RTC could do in-house transfers. They have 20 or so, 10, 15, whatever positions open up there. But staff that are laid off, if they're interested in any of those positions, and they are shift work and different rates of pay, but if any staff are interested in those positions, we could transfer them over. A big concern for staff is healthcare coverage, because our staff that are getting laid off is going to lose their healthcare coverage at the end of the month. So if any staff wanted to go work at Fortune Bay, we would do an in-house transfer over to Fortune Bay, so there would be no cut in their years of service, and they wouldn't have to do the drug test or interviewing or anything like that. They would just be slid over to those positions until the government shutdown ended, if they were interested. But again, that would be different rates of pay and different shift work, and basically whatever the positions that are posted. Just something for some of those individuals that, you know, are looking for other employment or something to hold them over until this ends. So that was decided. Anything else, you guys?
The other issue about, we do have some grants that we have to spend down, and the positions are open, so if you see us hiring somebody, that is the reason we will be the only reason we will be hiring is because we have to spend that money down. We want to be in compliance at all times with our grants.
It was also mentioned this morning, and that's a good thing that Chief brought up, is that, for example, we have a grant through DEED, and it was actually special legislation. So when we looked at programs for picking people who were going to stay or go, it was different for every department. It wasn't one set thing across the board, because first of all, was it a grant that had to be spent by so many days, or we had to meet those objectives and goals. So that was used. Also, services to tribal members was used, and let's see, what else was used? A variety of things were looked at, and it was, other people are going to possibly have to pick up similar duties, what they're doing now, but we're just trying to get by with what we can for now. But I will tell you, February 4th will if we're still in a government shutdown, it could be rather drastic, just because we don't know. And I did make a misstatement. The USDA did come up with funds to stay open till February 28th, and I think that's where a lot of the tribes some of the tribes are at, is where they're able to operate that for however long. The Prairie Island community, which is down towards Red Wing, down that way, Morton, or not Morton, yeah, Morton. They have Red Wing. That's what I thought. Red Wing, and they don't have any problem. They have a good reserve. They're ready for this. That's one thing that the council did meet about, and we will be looking at building a reserve in the near future, like soon. And Shane brought it up at one of our meetings that if we do a reserve, that in order for anybody to touch that reserve, it has to be voted on, and the whole council has to approve it. So for example, let's say somebody had an idea, and all these three guys agreed on it, and I agreed on it, and Shane didn't agree on it. Nobody can touch that money. It has to be a consensus of all five. So that's one thing we're looking at, because we were asked, what have you done or what haven't you done to prepare for this? Well, we weren't prepared for this, and we need to be prepared in the future, so we will be coming up with an action plan in the future to deal with this, because right now, we're just trying to get by with what we can each day. And it's frustrating for us because, and Shane mentioned it, and I know he said it before, that all our employees are important. It's not that, you know, what you do or your service that you do is non-important. I really, and we all agree, we don't like the terms essential and non-essential, because that's just, I don't like those terms. Everybody's important. Everybody that provides services is important. Everybody that shows up for work is important. And so we want to reiterate that to our staff and to the people, that we do care about our staff, but, you know, the federal government and President Trump, it's frustrating, because now we're putting people in positions that they may not know how to pay their bills. Same with the furloughed federal workers. And I know that another example is in the healthcare area, the Minneapolis urban healthcare programs. They are going to probably end up shutting their doors because they don't rely on tribes for funding. They rely on Indian Health Service, and Indian Health Service is closed. So the funding is it's trickling down, but it's in various programs like housing, we're okay there. Head Start, we're okay there. Scholarships was mentioned. Scholarships will continue. It's important for people to get their education. Our WIA program will continue. It's important for people to get to work or have that assistance. Most of the assistance programs were what was cut or what was not funded. And so, and I also made a misstatement, the VA is a discretionary program. I'm getting corrected by people here, so thank you for that, because it is confusing. Questions, comments? Don't. Go ahead, Vicki.
I had a question. Well, I listened to the live stream this morning, and I think one of the things that kind of hit me was most of the employees are feeling where the morale is pretty down, communication's pretty bad, and how everything was decided and why. My thought was, you know, even though a lot of the programs up here aren't actually federally funded, have you looked at the different options of, say, even Fortune Bay, even though it's not federally funded, looking at them as actually helping to provide assistance, the federally funded programs? I mean, everybody here, it looks like they're taking wage cuts or hourly cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps maybe looking at Fortune Bay actually as looking at their wages and the people that aren't necessary people. I mean, everybody's necessary people, as you say, but the ones that, you know, actually you could maybe reduce their hours and help. You know, it's a whole reservation issue. It's not just funded, it's the whole reservations issue. I guess that's my thought.
Okay.
If that's been looked at, or if that's an option to look at.
I know when we met with Fortune Bay, because a lot of people are saying, well, why don't you ask Fortune Bay for money? And right now, Fortune Bay does owe the band some funding. What we're trying to do is right now we're trying to draw down the money that we can for housing and whatever, and manage right now without doing that. We will at some point have to get funding from Fortune Bay. And Fortune Bay is aware of that. And so we have an idea of what that is, the amount, but not a definite idea. Our payroll, for example, our payroll at Bois Forte, with everybody on, everybody's working the same, you know, the whole thing. That's with benefits, it's about $600,000. Our healthcare costs are huge. Healthcare coverage is a big issue, and so that's one of the things that we did with our decision making. For example, is I'll use just health as an example with the patient benefits coordinators. You know, we might have people that may need to sign up for health insurance. Do we have enough people on staff to do that? To assist with those employees that may not want to transfer over to Fortune Bay, will lose their health insurance, those types of things. So different things like that were used to come up with the idea of the plans. Our Tarot office, for example, we had 2 people in that position. One is a deed grant that was special legislation that has to be spent, so that person was kept on. and is also implementing programs, CDL training and that. The other worker, though, was laid off. So there's things like that each program is different. And so right now, housing has taken none because we're operating on last year's revenue yet from housing. So nothing will happen with the housing staff. Head Start is fully funded, and so there's not gonna be a break in the daycare. So those are things like that we had to look at for each department. Did I answer your question, Vicki? Kind of?
Kind of, I still, I guess, is that better?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I really see that maybe they would be able to assist better. What I see right now is that them purchasing all these slot machines and putting in, where that money could actually go to helping fund some of the people that are being laid off and having reduced hours, rather than investing this money into things that maybe once we're stabilized again and the federal government, maybe if it would ever open up without the wall.
Yeah, yeah.
And then go forward with what their plans are on renovating and bringing themselves up to date. That's what my thought was.
Okay, well, good comment on that, and we can bring that back to Fortune Bay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Another thought I
That's
had
okay.
too was, it was mentioned that the tribal council meetings were only going to be held in Net Lake now.
Yes.
Because it costs $500 to come to Tower. I don't see why we can't have the meetings over in the center here where I don't think it's a $500 cost to use the center.
No, that's a good point. And someone mentioned to me, I went for lunch at Fortune Bay, and a band member mentioned it to me that really it would be nice to still have the meetings here in Vermilion. We could have them here at the center. We don't necessarily have to have them at Fortune Bay. So that might be something we'll change.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good idea.
I know that some things that we have been looking at too is the court project, and I brought it up before, is that we do have, the court project right now is operating under the Shakopee Bedouin money. And there is tribal dollars that's set aside for it. And that if it comes to it, we could use the tribal dollars, because they're still operating under the Shakopee money until March. Then come March, they'll be operating on the tribal dollars, so that's something that we could look at as using. But then the question will become, we're gonna have to refund that 900,000, 800,000 there from Fortune Bay. So, I mean, Fortune Bay has money, but not that much.
Hang on, Vicki, you need to use the microphone.
Yeah, but you're not management. I mean,
Go ahead,
the
Vicki.
management are the ones that I'm talking about, not the hourly people at
Okay.
Fortune Bay. So it was the management that I was talking about, and I agree. Yet the seasonal employees and the regular employees that are hourly paid should not have their hours cut.
Right,
You know, just to make that a point,
okay.
because I know it is a slow time, but I know the management, the salaries are up there, and you know, to me, like I say, it's an entire reservation issue
Yes.
as far as the federal funds go, and I think all the programs should be able to put in, you know, assistance towards these problems that exist.
Great, thanks, Vicki, for that comment. I know that from our meeting this morning, I did receive an email that some individuals are thinking of wanting to put up a food shelf, a food bank in Net Lake. You know, I think one of the things that we mentioned, hang on, Barb, one of the things we mentioned was that, you know, if it comes down to it where some smaller tribes are already closing their doors, and if it comes to that point for us, then we as a community need to come together and make sure we take care of each other and take care of our elders. An example I used this morning is that I live at Indian Point, and I don't know how many elders receive meals down there, but you know, maybe that's something that we as a little community down there could do to help our elders get their meal once a day, because a lot of people depend on that and they save it for supper sometimes. You know, so just those things, we have to help each other out as much as we can through this whole process and cuts and everything. Barb?
I have a comment and then I have a question. I did watch the video from the meeting in Net Lake this morning, and I wanted to know if I could get the numbers again for the band members that were laid off versus the non-band members. I thought I heard 39 and 55, or the total was 55, and of those, 39 were band members. Is that correct? Okay, and then I believe, Kathy, I think it was you that said that when we get the total number, it would come out as band members' households that were affected. I would ask that the band members that are laid off, that it get reported as band members that were laid off.
Yeah, it will be that way, but then also those that maybe have children that are band members, the family component for those that maybe one of the enrolled people aren't working, that will also, they'll be separated.
Separate? Okay.
Yes,
I just want to make
Yep.
that clarification
Nope,
because
good.
As a band member, I mean, I'm a band member, my kids are band members, and all of my grandkids are band members. And as band members, we do have, you know, other rights that people that are working for us that aren't band members don't have. And so I want to make that clear. And that's one of the problems that I have with how this whole thing come out. I am one of the people in the second round of layoffs. And the question I have is that since I've been laid off, I heard that some of the people that have been laid off with me, or that got letters the same time I did, are no longer on layoff status. And so I want to know, and I heard that they got to go before the tribal council along with their supervisors and lobby for their jobs back or whatever. And I heard that from a pretty credible person. And so I want to know why some people got to do that and others didn't, because I would like the chance to do that, because I have information that I think that wasn't available to the tribal council in regards to, you know, my position that wasn't given to the tribal council, or that the tribal council didn't know. So I would like to know that, the answer to that question.
Thank you, Barb, for that question. And that's what Barb's talking about is the meetings we held with the departments. The directors were asked to come in with their plan. One of our biggest departments is the Health and Human Services Department. And what happened there is that the department managers came in with the health director to see how they came up with how they determined who was going to be laid off. Well, that information was given to the health director, and the health director made the decisions. And so we just wanted to know why and how they did that. And so there was no special meeting with staff that were laid off. It was between the meetings with the directors, the RTC met separately on that, by ourselves, with no one else there to lobby for their job. What happened with the letters is it was a huge mistake. When we had our first meeting with the first group, we knew exactly, leaving that meeting with the senior management and council, we knew exactly who was getting laid off at that time. Okay? When we had the second meeting on January 7th, 2 council members were not at that meeting. And these council members were at the meeting, and the last thing they knew was that there was going to be a list provided to HR by a certain time with regards to the layoffs. And so that's when I think Miranda sent the list out that afternoon to the council, and there were questions on it. So, well, then we had the meeting the next morning at 9 with the staff, so we really didn't have a chance to discuss it. And then we discussed it after the staff meeting, which I believe ended about 12:30, 1 o'clock, I'm not sure. And right away we met with Fortune Bay, because we called them up that morning, And then after that, we met with each department. But the only department that had staff coming in was the Health and Human Services Department. The other directors came in themselves. The letters were sent out, though, to the staff saying they were laid off, because I actually found out from a staff member they were laid off. And that's when people were wondering who's making the decisions here, who's taking ownership, how did they do that? Because I know that we had questions ourselves with regards to some of the staff that were getting laid off because they were service providers. And it was just, we didn't know how they came up with their decisions or why they came up with them the way they did. And that's when they came in and discussed them. Then we made the decision alone, the 5 of us, and Corey at that time. Did I answer your question? Okay.
And nobody, no staff lobbied for their job. The decision was made by council as to who would, as to where the cuts would be made. Nobody lobbied for their jobs.
Okay, and the other thing that I want to make sure that doesn't happen is that those of us staff members who are speaking up and asking questions and making comments, that we aren't going to be retaliated against.
No.
Because I also heard prior to the new council members coming on, my schedule was I'm on an alternate work schedule, and because my job is the realty manager, and the majority of the residential leases are over in Vermilion. I'm over here 2 days a week, and now I heard that after I'm recalled, that I'm going to be back up in Net Lake 5 days a week, and I don't know where that decision came from, but I did hear it, and so I want to make sure that those of us who are asked, you know, we are speaking as community members, as band members, as staff members. I don't want that, you know, to be retaliated against, because that is a violation of the personnel policies and the code of ethics. And, you know, it's just not right. And that's part of the reason why we have a low morale in our staff, and people are afraid to stand up and say what they really want to say. And we can't have that. You know, this is an open government.
Yep.
Or it should be.
Yep.
And so that's all I want to say.
I think Lorna first, then Vicky. But let me answer that a little bit, Barb. With regards to your hours in Vermilion or whatever, I know there was some talk about nobody in the planning and community development program, so I think it's a matter of rescheduling hours for when staff are gone, so someone's in the office all the time. That was the discussion or the comment that was made, that there's staff that are over in Vermilion, so there's no one left in Net Lake. So that was with that. And as far as retaliation, I have never seen this council or the past 2 years where there's been retaliation from the council. Everybody can speak their mind and not worry about that, because I don't view it as doing wrong. I feel as a way to improve, and everybody's entitled to their opinions. So I don't believe in that. We do have a open government, and we are trying to do that. So I really like to hear what the rumors are, because we can correct that by just a question.
You know, to add on to that, retaliation part, yes, I understand that quite well. My family does understand that, the drifts. We do understand that what happened. Namely to what happened with Carlene and Donald. You know, so I hear you on that one.
Vicky?
My comment basically is based on.
That's a bad mic.
It's basically based on what Barb said. I've heard those comments on the rumors.
Wait, no.
And I agree that basically we need these people up here also not only in Net Lake, but on the on Vermilion side, because a lot of the programs affect our, you know, our end of the reservation also.
Mhm.
It's not only Barb's program and say Tracy's program
Yep.
or other programs, but I believe more programs should come up here so that other people have
Access.
ideas of what's available. My grandson didn't even know there was a tarot program until I explained it to him. So I mean, I think, you
That's a
know,
good
as
idea.
things come together, I think we do need more people from the offices up in Net Lake to come up to Vermilion and actually provide services up here also.
That's a great idea, Vic. I remember
Thanks.
years ago, and I don't know how many, but the directors or programs would have a day that they came up a week to provide services. How many years ago, Barb? 8.5 years ago. Where
remember that.
it was required that the programs come up once a week and they had an office they could be in. So I think that's a really good idea. Lorna? Yeah, you got to use the mic.
One of the things too, along with your guys' comments about having our staff here, we talked with Chief, we talked with Kevin here, and because we're running out of office space, we looked at the conference room down the hallway, and we do have cubicles in that lake that are upstairs in our storage area, and we talked about dividing up this conference room, so we have at least 4 desks here, so we could have staff up here, because I do know that we need to provide the services here as well. You know, we're providing them in Net Lake every day, but we also need to have them up on this end also, because, you know, the community here is growing, and so is the amount of people that are living in the community. So we do have a plan in place, and we are looking at trying to get that done. We're hoping to get it done in December, but then now we're here, so.
Lorna, did you have a question?
I have
Comments?
I have a lot, I'm just trying to figure out.
It's okay.
So, you made the comment that Fortune Bay has money, not a lot, Shane said. But you're not going to take any from them right now.
Lorna's question was that the comment was made that Fortune Bay has money but not a lot. Right now, we're able to operate the way we can with what we've got.
So the people that have been laid off and aren't able to make payments, that's irrelevant to,
No, that's not irrelevant. What we're trying to do is stretch it as far as we can go. And by eliminating little bits at a time, and I don't mean to say the word eliminating, but by cutting back a little bit at a time, a little more conservative, we're able to keep open longer. If we kept going as is, we might only be able to last till the first week of February. So that's why we're doing piece by piece, little by little.
another question I have is the tribal council's salary grant or tribal?
Our salary is funded through indirect cost and tribal funds, I believe. Where's Kim?
And as a matter of perspective, I think something that people look at is the amount of money that the council makes in comparison to the average employee.
Mhm.
And now you've all said you've cut 20%
Right.
off of what you make.
Right.
And I had some time in between your morning meeting and now, and I did some math, and I took $80,000 as a beginning point. And then I did 8.5. I ended up with 20% reduction on that 80,000. I came up with, you guys are pulling in $2,255 every 2 weeks. Another employee who makes $15 an hour is going to take 16 hours a cut in a pay period, is going to take home $960. And that's before anything is taken out.
Mhm.
So I guess my question is, how as leaders can you sit there taking home that much money when there are your own people that are struggling to make ends meet and feel that that's justified and okay at this point, knowing that this is temporary, we know it's not going to go on forever. How can you not give more, try to keep more of the band members employed, cut more of your pay, dole it out to some of these programs and keep some of the more band members employed for one paycheck? That might be a car payment, well, you know, a credit card payment. People that are struggling to make their credit, build their credit, are gonna not be able to make ends meet and their credit's gonna go down. I mean, there's just so much that's going to happen with the everyday person. Terrace mentioned that this morning. You're not relatable to the people anymore. You're forgetting about the little people, the people that are on the front lines, that are, you know, struggling and trying to make ends meet, and y'all are sitting there pulling in thousands of dollars. It just doesn't, in my mind, I can't understand that thinking, that mentality of people and leadership. And so I guess I'd like to hear
Yeah.
your comments on that.
Thank you. I know after this morning, Tara mentioned a comment this morning about if the council could cut their salaries to like 60,000, 50, 60,000. They are at that now, the 60,000. Mine actually went down to 75. And so we have taken cuts throughout for the past few years because we've been hearing that from our people about our salaries being too high. One thing that I would take a layoff today, but we don't have unemployment, so I wouldn't have any income because we're not eligible for state unemployment, and our unemployment is through the tribe. And so, you know, we would have no income coming in. I mean, we have bills to pay, and I don't want to sound like that, but I can't go without a paycheck. I need food on the table, and even if it's unemployment, that would help, but I'm not even eligible for that. You know, but the council, you know, I think, and I understand what you're saying, Lorna, and I agree. It's tough because we all have bills to pay. We have house payments, we have car payments, we have children, grandchildren, families living with us, and it is hard. We have taken an 8.5% cut 2 years ago. We didn't increase that at all. Plus, we're not getting raises, but we allowed our staff to get raises, so they can build up their paychecks. And we did that because of staff morale. Because with the salary freeze last year, you know, staff morale has been really low, and it is low. And that's why in this morning's meeting, I mentioned that we really need input from our staff and anybody on how to build morale. We're trying to do as much as we can, but we need some ideas. We need some help. Keep going, Lorna. Keep going. Did you want to comment?
The original round of cuts, it was brought up that I and Shane, being the newest members, we're gonna go on unemployment. We're gonna take a layoff. Running it by I believe Kim, we were told that we wouldn't be eligible for unemployment. We were willing to do that. You know, and it might, all options are on the table.
Well,
All options are on the table. It could come to that. I worked for 7 years for housing at $10 an hour. And I would have been eligible for unemployment, but I couldn't because I'm an elected official now, so I wouldn't have been able to get unemployment.
yeah, I guess I understand you can't get unemployment, but I guess my argument is if you have, you know, $2,000 check, you can't make that stretch for 4 weeks. I mean, your standard of living is much higher, I guess that's the point, than the average person in the community. That's kind of what I'm getting at. When you made your decisions to cut or lay off people, what were your goals? I mean, what were the goals?
Hold on, before we continue on with that, you want to check that microphone because I'm getting messages saying that they can't hear what you're saying.
I think it's fixed. It was cutting out and stuff now. See if they can hear now. Let them know, ask them. Yeah, because it was cutting out. I mean, I couldn't hear myself, so.
Could you say that again, Lorna? Sorry.
What did I say?
Something about the decisions.
Oh, what were the goals when we got the shutdown? This is going to be our process. What are our goals? What do we need to do?
Okay. The main thing I know one of the main things we looked at was how can we still provide the services with making minimal cuts? And how can we, an example, let's see, well, like I mentioned the Tarot program, for example, we had a situation there where we have to spend that grant money, so that kind of solved that one there. And the other person requested a layoff or was okay with going with the layoff, so that's how that one went for that first round. And then the other ones, for example, like there's nothing we can do for housing, they're fully funded, so there was no decision made there. With regards to education, scholarships were important. We can't cut that. That's tribal funds. And so that's we're looking at tribal funds, where we can get funding, where we can't get funding, and then also services and positions. And if somebody could fill in, an example might be nursing at the clinic. They had 4 nurses, well, they can get by with 3.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So it was different for every department.
So like when you looked at education, you went, we could cut the director by 16 hours a pay period and keep the youth centers open and keep that service available for the youth and those people employed. Was that a consideration? Did you?
Not with the youth centers. The youth centers were actually the first to go because those are majority, and I don't really know the percentage offhand, are tribal dollars. The education department has, I think, 6 or 7 pots of money that they can use for their programs. Mm-hmm. And so the youth center only has the tribal. So that's it gets complicated because some people are paid out of numerous programs. Like for Head Start, let's say the education director gets a percentage and the assistant person gets a percentage. It's complicated in that manner. I do want to say that with regards to the directors, there were some directors that did take cuts and some that we felt couldn't take cuts due to staffing. So,
okay.
Or workload, I guess I could say.
Looking forward, at the meeting this morning, you talked about possibly extending the deer season. Have you made a decision on that?
On what?
Extending the deer season, so people.
That was mentioned this morning. I mentioned to Tara that if it gets to a point, is that something that, it was mentioned as a comment that, is that something the Conservation Committee could look at as extending the deer season so people could go out and get venison or whatever. So I believe that's possible through the committee.
Okay.
Special considerations, I guess.
I would be in favor of doing that.
And looking forward, you're talking about starting a reserve fund.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought about where that money is going to come from? Because I'm aware that when you did the Fortune Bay allocation for the programs, that there were quite a bit funds that weren't given. So where do you foresee this money coming from?
Right now, we have told, usually our distribution from Fortune Bay was at 2.4. And so next year we said we would like, we gave them a heads up saying we would like to request that be 3 million. And that's the money we get from Fortune Bay is to help fund programs and services that the federal government is lacking in. I know a lot goes into like our radio station, the scholarship program, for example, is important. That's not funded by any grants. Our funeral fund that we have for the tribe, that's comes from the Fortune Bay funds, but we've already told them that we would like to do that. And then we have to decide also what amount. We haven't done that yet. It's been too busy to even decide what an amount that would be. But it would probably come from the Fortune Bay distribution. You know, and the tribe could have had reserve funds, but you know, it just depends on what the needs are at the time. And I know we had we had 2 settlements. What was it, Rob? The Nez Pierce and the Cobell and Nelson Act. There was monies left over from that. It was distributed out to the band members in per capita payments. That would have been a reserve fund. There's always, I know back in the day, and this is way back in the day, when the 1854 monies first came out, that they would give 80% out in per capita and keep 20% for programs or administration. That might be another way of doing it, taking that percentage and putting it away. We haven't discussed that yet, but we're going to be looking at things like that. So we haven't made a decision yet.
Well, one thing that I suggested, I also posted an email on my group page, is that when we ask money from Fortune Bay, if we ask for $3 million, we put $500,000 away into a reserve. Because we need to start building reserve. You know, I've said that back in 2016. I'm still saying that. You know, we did have money at one time back in 2000. Should have kept building on that reserve, but they didn't.
Another question about in the future, say the shutdown ends and some of the laid off employees go back to work on a Wednesday, say at the middle of the pay
Work
period.
week.
Will they be allowed, or can they use annual leave to make up those days before in that pay period to compensate, to help kind of ease their financial burden?
And that's kind of what, because we never know when it's going to end.
Right.
And that was one of the things that was discussed, is that if it ended today, for example, like say 5 o'clock, they got into a wonderful agreement and signed everything okay, you know, staff would be called back, but that would be an opportunity for them to say, well, I'll use my leave or whatever, or try to make up hours within that pay period, yes. We're willing to try adapt in any way, because it is going to cause a financial hardship on everybody that's been impacted by this.
In the morning meeting, also it was mentioned, I think Darren brought it up, the 401k loan.
Yes.
That's going to affect a couple of years where they're not going to be able to take loans out.
Yes.
Are you going to change that? Are you going to rescind
There's
that?
it's a possibility. That decision isn't made by the council. There's and I can't remember what it's called. It's a financial work group that works with that 401k program, and they make the recommendation to the council. So we could take it back to them to have them make that recommendation and see what they can do. I think that ends at the end of 2019. Ends in 2019, so they can still do that right now, but after 2020, they took that away. It's kind of a financial work group. It's the question was who's in that group that decided on the 401k. I know myself, David, Kim Greiner, Miranda, who else, Miranda? Rick Anderson, Jenna, Corey, Simona Benner. It's HR departments, it's Gloria and Vera is the group. So it's Fortune Bay and government staff.
Well, it's almost like then if it's the group from the reservation and part of the people that could actually help with the funding for the different programs right now, it might be an easy fix to go forward with them to maybe bring a suggestion to them to stop that.
Yep. And right now they still are eligible to do that if they haven't taken out a loan already. That's still open for them until December. So, but anything after December, then we could ask the committee to reconvene and discuss it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question from a band member. Says here, quick question. You guys say come February you will meet again, and then what? I don't understand why we started with layoffs and then backed out, and most went to reduced hours. So when February comes, will there be for sure layoffs if the government is still shut down?
I would say yes, there will be more layoffs. We're trying to make it last the money last as long as we can. And like I said, we're just trying to do little bits at a time. The past 2 to 3 weeks have been very chaotic and hectic for our staff. And, everybody is worried, am I gonna get cut this week or next week, or are my hours gonna get cut this week or next week? Am I gonna have a job when I come back? It's caused a lot of chaos, and so that's why with phase 1 we did the tribal funded. Phase 2 we did just a little bit more with 8 layoffs, and then on February 4th we had like a cooling off period between phase 2 and phase 3 to let the dust settle and see what happens. And then phase 3 will be, I think, and I don't know until we meet and sit down with Kim Greiner and ourselves and the directors, it may be more severe cuts. That's just my feeling. I don't know about the rest of the council.
I think that's something that, we're gonna have to sit down. I think we should sit down sooner rather than February 4th to put everything on the table and then to meet with Kim, because I was looking at her email and she sent out a nice spreadsheet of the breakdown of the grants and stuff and tribal dollars.
Hi, I guess there's a lot that I'm really wondering about and everything, and I have not lived on the reservation ever since I was 18 years old. But I do keep track of what goes on and everything that's up there. I guess a few of my questions is, okay, I understand the tribal council, each has a role that you guys have to do, okay? My concern about is I have not seen a financial report yet to this day. I mean, I've seen them, but do I believe them? No. Okay? That's my concern. I don't understand what the secretary treasurer, what the responsibilities or anything like that is, but I think for one thing that as people are running, they should have that job description for Bois Forte band members like myself to see. That's one of the criterias. And also be responsible for each, whatever your roles are, okay? That's my concern. My next concern is you have commissioners, you have directors, correct?
The commissioners are no longer commissioners, they're directors.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I said. There used to be commissioners.
Yeah, no, we took that away.
Not no more.
Not no more.
Okay,
Directors.
that's a good thing.
Yep.
The other thing is you have directors who are also responsible for financial situations. And I believe that should also go out to the band members. So we know, financially where the band sits. Okay, all this has brought in, because we do not have that information or it's not being shared or whatever. This is why Bois Forte Band is in the shape that they are in right now. My question to you, and not only you, Kathy, because you and Jane and them are the only ones really answering questions. What is your plan to inform the band members more on what is actually really happening on our reservation? Are we getting financial reports? What is your goal? I know it's a tough situation right now.
Yeah.
And that is very, very sad.
Yeah.
That a lot of people are getting laid off a lot of people, you know, we all have families.
Yeah.
I'm not part of the reservation, thank God. But it's hurting everybody.
Yeah, it is.
You know? What are your plans to change this? What are your plans to put the reservation back to where it was when Gary Donald had that $80,000 million,
$8 million,
whatever that was?
Yep.
You know? I have concerns about people that are being laid off, you know? How are they going about laying people off? Okay, you met with your directors. Oh, this person ain't needed. Everybody is needed.
I know.
You know what? And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not afraid to speak. I believe, like Dorothy Oy and I are here today to try bring the language back to the Vermilion Reservation. We're not being paid. We're volunteering our time. If you really had people with a good heart, they would donate their time to these programs until you start climbing your way back up. That's my belief. And when I had heard, the first one that I heard was that Boys and Girls Club got closed, I was a little ticked because it should not affect our children. My children don't come here, but I still care about children because I've worked in daycare and all that many, many years. That should not affect the kids. Me, as an elder, have to teach these kids our language, our traditions, so that they don't go off on that side of the road. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's where I was mad. My next concern is because I work in the elderly kitchen here. I'm not under Bois Forte, but I'm under Senior Community Service Employment Program. That was my next concern. Children and elders are very important. They're more important than anybody in their jobs. These are the ones that we should be taking care of. Yeah, I'm a little angry. You know, I'm sad that the reservation is in Titanic, I like to call it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So what is the plan? Do you guys have plans for these directors to, even the accounting department? Somebody should have known that you guys were going down. That's called accountability. You know, if they knew this grant was running out of money or whatever, somebody should have got informed. Is everybody really doing their jobs? You know?
I see what you're saying, Margaret.
So who's to blame? You know, everybody's like pointing fingers at whoever. You know, I don't know. But Dorothy and I are here today to do the language. It's open to anybody. This is what people should do. Our reservation should come as a whole. Cut your pay. Give half your pay. Do whatever you got to do if it's really in your heart and concerns about the people in the community.
Are you done? Okay.
Oh, I could go on
I
and
know you
on, but
could,
them were
Margaret.
my main points.
With regards to what is our plan, we are coming up with a plan, and that's the reserve fund we're gonna be building. We do plan on having a reserve fund, like when Gary Donald was here with his 8 million or whatever. That's our goal, is just to have a reserve fund for events like this that'll happen, possibly in the future. You just never know when they're gonna happen. The other plan we have is, if ever this government shutdown ends, then what we'll do is, as soon as we hear the possibility of a government shutdown, we will enact the plan that we're gonna come up with, because this is our first really long shutdown. We're gonna assume that any government shutdown is gonna last long, and we'll implement that plan. Right now, there was nothing in place. So we'll get that going. As far as the financials, last year we didn't come out with a financial annual statement. That is going to come out this year, hopefully in February. It will have the businesses listed as far as how much was spent on those, and it'll be a guesstimate, because there, with regards to the Power Rain and Tim Hortons and all that kind of stuff, sometimes there were funds shuffled all over where it was really hard to track, but it'll be as close to what we can get with regards to how much money was put into those businesses. And we're also gonna have, that report will come out. And, because we as a council agreed to make sure that report comes out to the people for that. And I'll let David answer your other questions with regards to financials that you're asking about in that aspect.
And then, well, every year at the State of the Band, we always had our financial people from the government, and we also had our financial staff from Fortune Bay there, and they would each give a report on how things are going, end of the year reports, and we had our band members that wanted to go sit through there. There was different times that were set. One would be at, I think, if it started at noon, it would start at noon, and they ran every hour, and each Fortune Bay and our tribal government would give their reports. And then there was questions. If the band members had questions, they would have their questions answered, and everything was displayed up on the board, so people could see the numbers. And in the past, I always used to give a financial report at the State of the Band also. But then, as the State of the Band, we'd have it each year. They ran kind of long time. They'd run long, and people would get tired, and they'd get tired of sitting. And so we had surveys that were made from our band membership that were attending the State of the Band, and we got back a lot of comments that the only one who should be talking is probably the chairman. He should give the State of the Band report and cut out what the rest of the council was doing, and because they were saying that we were repeating what the chairman was talking about anyway, and that it was just taking too long to do the State of the Band, and so that's what happened. And I'm trying to remember how long it's been since just the chairman gives a report, and it's been quite a few years, and so that's why I don't give a financial report no more at the State of the Band, and we just make it available during the State of the Band, which we put on, and anytime anybody wants to see any records, they're more than welcome to come up and make an appointment with us, or if there's no detailed information that they'd like to see, we just have them set a time. They can come up, and we'll get those records out on the table for them to view, and that's how we've done it. If a financial report wants to know if that's what the band membership want, then we can give a financial report updates. If they want them quarterly, or if they just want them at the end of the year, we can do that. But I know that in the past, when I first got on the council, I used to write a report. I used to write a report in the newspaper, and then we started getting comments that I was repeating what the chairman was already saying, and so then that's when I start deleting. I start quit putting my my article in the paper, because we were just kind of more or less repeating what other council members were submitting to the newspaper. But again, like I said, we can do whatever we want. We're open. We're there's nothing to hide, and there was always end of the year reports that were made, and I know that I've seen it in the past where during tribal election years, where some of the candidates would have that end of the year report in their hand, and when they would get up and give their speech and give what they can do for the band, they'd have that end of the year report, and they hold up and they say lies. They call it lies, where that the tribal council was lying to the band membership. And so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't report nothing, then they say we're hiding stuff. And then when we do report, then we're saying we're lying. So it kind of, like I said, it's something that we can do, and we should get back to doing. And I know we have 2 new council members here now, and Travis has always been to his his 3rd year now, and Kathy is in her 3rd year as tribal chair, and she was on the council before. So we can sit down and discuss it, and then come up with a plan to start giving out better financials. That's something that we're not going to hide from the band membership, and we'll get that out there. And with that, I will turn it back over to Kath, I think. And but yeah, thanks for your comment there. I appreciate you're concerned, and like you said, you're a little perturbed with what's going on, and so are we. We're the tribal council. We're a little mad too. What's happening with the state of the economy here, and what the federal government is putting us through. And a lot of our band members are angry. My oldest son, David Jr., everybody knows him as Squidge. He's one of the people that work for the fitness program. And I know that his feelings were really hurt. And I know that he's wondering how he's going to make his payments, and so I'm really concerned with him, and I feel for him. But one thing that he told me just today, he said, come up, and after we got done this morning, he said, well, Dad, he said, he said, maybe this layoff for me is going to do me some good, he said, because now I'm going to look at the Taro program, and I'm going to look at our Taro program is going to do another round of our band members that want to go out and get their CDL license for truck driving. And he said, I'm going to sign up for that, and I'm going to try to get my truck driver license. He said maybe I'll get a truck driving job somewhere, and I won't have to rely on the government to help me, he said. And he said he's looking forward to our Taro person to get that program set up, because I know that Taro person that's still on board is in the process of setting that program up. And then you kind of look back at what's happening across the country, how people are affected by layoffs. They're affected by employees that might not like each other, and they might not get along. And you see where these people are going into their employers, and they're taking things out of their own hands. They come in with violence, and they shoot other people. And I hope and I pray that this don't ever happen to our reservation. And I hope that we as Indian people don't lower ourselves to that level come in and deliberately hurt another person with violence. And we're all, capable of getting along and talking and working things out. And again, Margaret, I know how you're feeling, and we can accommodate you and your in what you want, and we can give those reports, and we'll make sure that that we can get those reports to the band membership. So thank you for those comments.
I would just like to add to that, yes, you're right. You hit the nail right on the head. As individual council members, we do have a role and responsibility to you as band members, and also as a tribal council, we have responsibility to you as band members. Regarding the financial report, I did send an email, and I also posted that on my group page. The number 3 item was a year-end report to the band members. And one of the other things too is I would like to request for that year-end report is a financial report from Fort Chebet to show year by year how it did, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, so you're more informed. When Brandon was on council and he'd post stuff, I would listen to it. I'd read his posts to get an idea where we were at. A lot of stuff he said is happening. We can't keep playing politics with our tribal government. When a council member says something, listen. Ask questions. Because, some things, this council member, I don't like this council member, so I'm not going to listen to him or her. Well, that doesn't get anywhere. We're here to represent the best interest of the band, period. So when I put these issues out there, I wasn't doing it for myself, I was doing it for the band members. Trying to take advantage of what happened before. When I had these new businesses, we were given the opportunity to ask questions. They just bought these businesses that said, here we got these new businesses, then they failed. Thank you.
Follow up on what Dave was saying about the financial reports. I've been following politics for quite a few years. I don't ever recall a state of the band where our chairman got up and said, we're buying all these businesses, our reserves are getting dwindled down, and the truth. And I think in order to move forward and make it better, we do need to look backwards and see why we are where we are. And putting out financial reports that make everything look good and not telling the truth, I think there has to be accountability. I've always said that. Accountability, accountability, accountability. Secretary Treasurer's position is to know the financial status of the government, of the reservation. My question to Dave is, did you know throughout this period of time that these reserves were being spent, that we were getting down to nothing, that our businesses were failing? And if so, what did you do? What did you say?
Well, every time when we'd have a development corporation meeting, and every time when their money had to be moved around, like Kathy said, and we had these meetings monthly, and the tribal council is the one that it makes up both the gaming commission and the development corporation commission, and when funds had to be moved from the band to these businesses, they were approved by the tribal council. There was a motion made, there was a second made, and there was a vote taken. And as far as I can remember, no one ever voted against any of them. And so those were, like I said, were voted on every time. And we knew a couple times that and then we were told by our staff at Fortune Bay at the time that things would turn around. We're gonna turn this around. This program is gonna get turned around, or this business is gonna get turned around. And so we had to go on what we were told by our staff at the time. And they said we'll get this turned around, and so that's what we went on. We had to rely on their words, and some of those people that were in those positions were our band members, and so again that's what happened. And the businesses, like I said, never panned out, and to this day, I don't know why they didn't pan out. I'm not. I don't want to. I said it last week at the meeting that, and I kind of went back in history a little bit about the wild rice when the wild rice, when you could get $20 a pound, and the patty industry came in and bought their patty rice, and they flooded Minnesota with patty rice, and they took the wild rice sales away from band members to make a profit every year. And I said that when I was like 13 years old in 1968, I went out racing with my father, and he taught me how to start knocking and push poling back then, and we made some. We knocked some rice, and we went home, parched it up, and finished it out, and I sold that rice, and he told me, he said anything we sell, he said, you can keep. And so we ended up selling that rice for $20 a pound that year, and that was really the last time that I made that much money for a pound of rice. And so again, the wild rice market was taken from us, and I know that the band back then also tried to get a rice plant going, and so we could purchase rice, green rice from off the lake from our band members back then to process and sell nationally, statewide, nationally, whatever. And again, it just did not go nowhere. The band was stuck with. No, I wasn't on the council back then, but well, I like I said, when I start giving those reports, and then when I gave those reports, they would be in there, and like I said, I haven't given a financial report at State of the Band for I can't remember how long. It's been a long time, and when I would give those reports, they would show everything. I'd have the screen would be up, and I would show what Fortune Bay was going. What's that? At the State of the Band, I did. But during the State of the Band, we had our staff downstairs giving the report. But I would give a report at State of the Band during the evening. But I wouldn't give the report when they were made during when people were reviewing the programs, and they would walk around going, seeing what each program did, and the reason why I went, because our staff is there day to day to see what's going on, and so they were the ones that were giving those reports during the State of the Band program during that afternoon. But in the evening, when I would give my report, I would give the report.
If I could just say something with regards to what I know you guys, what Margaret had to say is with regards to, like she mentioned, the departments maybe doing some type of reports or financial reports. One of the things that we saw when we went to Mille Lacs is that, and I've seen it at, I believe it was Leech Lake too, where they have their programs give an annual report. And the report is in paper on where everybody sits. And I thought that was a really good idea, and I think we'll implement that for our State of the Band. It has been postponed until further notice, but I think that's really a good idea to have each department do a yearly or annual report to the people at the State of the Band. So you mentioned that in your comments, so I wanted to let you know that we'll be looking at that also. As far as the youth go, I'm sorry, but the Boys and Girls Club, we just got notice that our Boys and Girls Club is going to go under the Native American Boys and Girls Club. With that comes some funding, but not enough to keep staff on. It came during the shutdown, the notification, there was a problem with the insurance. I believe it was sexual harassment insurance or, employer liability, okay, as well as the sexual harassment. We had some difficulties with that, with regards to what was going to be a minimal cost to a huge cost. So that had to get resolved before we could go under that program. And there are some monies available, but not enough to keep the program running on its own. That program now, when we come back, we'll have that official title. I know we did receive little bits of grant money, like 20,000 here, 20,000 there. Some of it was used for equipment or whatever. So. But youth was a big component, so we know we closed the clubs, but we also left some other things for our youth as far as our priority. The LAEC JOM funding is tribally funded. We left that alone because our kids have needs in school. That is a priority. We also left the scholarship program for those students that are going to school because the FAFSA program isn't even in operation and they're going into spring semester. And so, the students are going to need that funding, the scholarship funding. So that was a priority there too. So we had to kind of pick and choose sometimes on these programs, and it was difficult. It was very difficult. But if nothing changes, it's going to be even more difficult as we keep meeting. So did we get all your comments, your questions, Margaret? Okay. Go ahead, young man.
Going back, could we possibly get like a quarterly report from every department and business, such as like Wheelie, Netlake Store, the Y Store,
Sure.
and post it on to the Bois Forte website? Would that be a possibility?
Anything's possible. All you got to do is ask, right?
Yeah.
I've always been told that, yeah, I don't see a problem with that
Okay.
at all. Good idea.
I think that, we had a community meeting. I wasn't on council back then, but they had a community meeting on that Lake Store, and they said, I think it was over like 9 years. They lost $300,000 per year, so that was $2.7 million that the Net Lake Store lost. So we did come on, we had the community meeting. Everybody was making suggestions, and I do believe they have cut that loss significantly.
Yeah.
It's still losing money, but it's not losing as much.
Yeah.
I can kind of understand why the Netlake Store is losing money. It's not really a store for making money. It's more of a convenience
Yes.
for people who live in Netlake.
Smart young man. Very good.
Thank you.
Vicki?
I just wanted to expand on what he said.
Yeah.
Because, there is, as far as I know, except for under the Bois Forte website,
Mm-hmm.
it's where the Bois Forte news comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than having, like Shane has the District 1 representative site, but I think a lot of people that go on there basically are just coming up with ideas and stuff. It should actually be through the whole reservation. from the council,
Mm.
the whole
I
council.
see what you're saying, a Facebook page for the council is what you're
Yes,
talking
uh-huh.
about. And we've been discussing that. We're actually looking at upgrading our website, for example, because it is kind of outdated and we want to get it more rejuvenated, I guess I could say that. But we've discussed having a Facebook page for the council because other tribes are doing that. We had a social media policy, but it was actually 2 parts. And I think we were looking at splitting that into just doing our own Facebook page first and then going from there with the second part. So that's a good point. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments or about service, Barb?
I would just ask that the tribal council meet earlier than
Okay.
the February 3rd or 4th or whatever that date is, because this is a crisis for our reservation. And I think that based on what has happened over the last couple of weeks with the miscommunication, the reactive rather than the proactive, and just the basic turmoil that our reservation is in right now, I think that there needs to be some pretty comprehensive planning that goes into this. And I think that as tribal leaders, you owe it to the band members that not only live here but that are employed here, and then get the word out to all of the band members. There's roughly 3,500 of us, and be clear and concise on what you are relaying, rather than having a lot of rumors and stuff floating around out there, because that is just adding to the turmoil. And so I would just ask that you meet and you come up with a comprehensive plan and get that out there sooner than later.
Thank you, Barb. With regards to rumors and everything, my first my first comment on that is, if you hear something, ask, because that's the only way. We're not afraid to tell you what the truth is. So if you hear a rumor, give us a call and ask, because we will tell you. The other thing I wanted to mention before we get done here is, on Friday, we are meeting with Congressman Pete Stauber. And this meeting with Pete Stauber was, he took Nolan's place, but he's new into Congress. This meeting was set up quite a while ago. It wasn't set up for this reason today, but this reason will be part of it, a big part of it. And it will be with the 11 tribes attending also. They've all been invited. Bois Forte initiated that meeting with Mr. Stauber because we wanted to, have him hear tribal concerns and issues. And one of them was the MCT land issue, where the MCT passed a resolution saying that any MCT lands would go back to the bands. And so, there's complications with that, and we need to inform Congressman Stauber on that, because if we're going to introduce any legislation or a bill of any kind, we should inform our local congressman of that. And so we will be meeting with Pete Stauber on Friday regarding that, and then we will also be meeting with our lobbyist on Friday. And he'll give us our feeling for Capitol Hill, and we are also planning a Washington, D.C. trip with our lobbyists to get our new council members out there and talking with some of the senators out there. So, and then we are meeting tomorrow morning with Donna and her PRC program, Purchase Referred Care, because are we going to have to go to medical priorities or not with regards to the former contract health program? People are asking, people are going to be without health care. There's a lot of questions, so we will be meeting on that program also tomorrow. So we are having some meetings with regards to programs that are, for example, Lynette, who is in charge of PRC, said, what are we going to do with PRC? And these are things that we don't really think of on a daily basis unless we're going to the doctor or whatever and accessing that program. So it's good that program people are bringing up their concerns so we can address them. We will meet, I'm not going to say try, we will meet sooner and start discussing this sooner. So, and we will get a plan out there. Thank you, Barb. No, kidding. Oh. Yep. Yes. Yeah, and that's one thing we were gonna say at the end here. We didn't say it at Net Lake, but we really need people to contact their congressmen, their legislators, everybody. This is huge. The impact is on a lot of assistance programs, and they're the people that are gonna be hurt the worst. And a lot of those are children, a lot of those are low-income families, a lot of those are also elders. So there's gonna be a lot of cuts and stuff, but the more pressure we can put on the government, the better. And the tribal voice does need to be heard, because we've kind of been, and I don't know, Irma Visner, the former chairwoman of White Earth, I watched her speak. She was really huge on education. She graduated from Harvard. And she brought the point right to, she wasn't afraid to say what she felt. And she said that Native American people are invisible because nobody sees us anymore. You hear about everybody else, but you never hear about the Native Americans. And there is a trust and treaty responsibility with us, and so that needs to be heard because they're not upholding their part on that, the federal government. So I just wanted, that's why we need to contact our legislators in Congress. We need to be heard. Any other comments? Kurt?
Yeah, just a suggestion. The number of people from that lake community this morning, it was cold, windy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't have rides. So if future meetings, maybe schedule a transit at different points, or just let people know, so,
Mm-hmm.
because it is.
Yeah, it just happened to be the coldest morning when we
Right.
want to have community meetings.
Right, and there was only a couple here.
Couldn't
I
be
see
30
more.
degrees,
Only,
only when we have meetings with our community.
but just
Thank you for
a
that.
suggestion.
Thank you for that suggestion, Kurt. Good idea.
I was gonna ask, oops, sorry. I was gonna ask if, everybody got one of these, flyers that were handed out about what was going on today. I know I talked to, Brian and the staff up here, Dale, and they did go around to each of the households in Vermilion and, hand them out a flyer that we were having meetings today. We hoped, and we hope that it was done in that,
Yeah.
there was a kind of a more higher of a show here than we had in that. And you know, I appreciate everybody coming out, and it is good. It is good. It's good that everybody's here. It's good to see everybody. And I was going to answer your question one more time, but Margaret, let you know that yes, our accounting. You can go in there anytime you want to look at the things. Just make an appointment and go in and you can look at them. But trust me, I had to do it for about 3 weeks there when I first got on council. And it was a headache, and I still don't quite, I mean, now I can find stuff that I'm looking for in the book, but it took me that long, with 3 weeks of Kim and council selling it, getting it in my head. Finally was able to get it, but it's a process. If you're gonna ever look at it, it's gonna take more than a day. Thank you.
I've been getting a lot of messages today saying, "Oh, I feel bad for you guys because you're getting chewed out all day long." But actually, I see that as a good thing. I said, "This is a whole lot of direction that we haven't got before." I've been on here now, going on my 3rd year. I get out and I talk to people. You know, they give you little opinions here and there, but they don't say, "We need this, we need that." This is some good conversations and some good butt chewing that we're getting. And we know what we need to do. We did drop the ball on this because we weren't prepared. We never had a shutdown this long. Now we're realizing what we got to do. We got to change the way we do things, and we definitely will. We have to build that reserve, because if we had our reserve, we wouldn't be hurting so bad. But we know what we got to do. I don't like getting chewed out, but like I said, this is the direction that we need to hear from everybody, from our directors, from our employees, from our band membership, on and off the reservation. it's a tough time for us. And like you guys said, it's, the ship is going down, and it's been going down slowly for a long time. And this shutdown really kind of pushing it down quicker. But hopefully it ends, and we've been making strides in the right direction at Fortune Bay on our government side, trying to not go aground. But we can see what we got to do now. Thank you.
Just a quick update, we just received something that's saying that the food distribution staff will now have more funding, and they'll be able to be fully staffed to the end of February. So just like that, those types of things keep coming in every day. So you want to say something, or you're telling me to be quiet?
Checking out my nails. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
No,
Bonjour, Anine.
I just wanted to, I haven't heard much in this meeting about economic development plans. I've heard how we're going to rely once again on Fortune Bay to bail us out when you're talking about putting so much aside, asking them for more money and putting that money aside. I just still think that the reservation, and I've always said that the reservation needs to concentrate on more of its own economic development. I've seen us get those assessments done by people that aren't from the reservation. I don't know how many tribal members we have out there in the community, in the larger community, that are talented in that area, but I wish we would find somebody that's invested in our tribe personally and do that assessment and come up with a realistic economic development goal rather than strictly rely on that casino and golf course.
Good point, Jackie. I know that I did see, and it was quite a while ago, a band member did like an assessment on economic development. And at that time, it was for the assessment mentioned having convenience stores. Well, convenience stores depend on location and population. So we know at the C-store, that's a convenience store. It's not a grocery store. That location is there for the people to have access to basic needs. The Y-store is doing okay. It does very well, actually. And so I think that, and I think Shane mentioned it this morning too, is that we need to do feasibility studies, community needs assessments, all these types of things to figure out what that economic development future will be. I think what you run into sometimes is if you want to build a whole brand new business, that's costly, but maybe do we want to invest or buy out a business? For example, like the Mille Lacs Band has been buying hotels. White Earth, with some of their money, bought a hotel and turned it into some type of transitional housing or a sober house or whatever for band members in the cities. These are different things that we can look at as a tribe because other tribes are doing it. And part of the revenue process for White Earth has been through the opioid crisis with medication-administered treatment. They made $7 million in 1 year in medication-administered treatment. So there's avenues, but I think Shane wants to say something, Jack, before you get going here.
Actually, it's more of a question from a band member, but if you go ahead.
Go ahead, Jack. Did you really? I really did. Okay, well, one thing that Shane mentioned this morning, and we will be looking at a resolution of we canceled our meeting today because we felt these community meetings were very important to get out to the community what's happening. So we didn't have our RTC meeting today, but passing a resolution with any economic development that there be band input first before pursuing along with your feasibility studies and stuff to see if that's what our band membership wants. So, did you remember? Okay, Shane?
Well, the question comes from a band member. It says, with the cuts being made, what are we saving? Staff is not receiving travel mileage. Does the council?
There is limited travel. It is, for example, we'll use our iLead grant, which was through education and the grants manager. There is specified grant training that we are required to attend. So those individuals will be flying out of state to attend that mandatory training because it's part of the grant process. Local travel is payable to individuals. It's just, is it necessary or is it unnecessary travel? Is it something that maybe could be done through IT? You know, we have technology now. Can meetings be done through webinars or Skype or whatever? So that's what we're looking at, but there is local travel available for staff. It's just to be a little more conservative, I guess. Do you remember, Jackie?
You're probably lucky, because I was going to ask you each individually to answer a question.
I have no problem.
It had to do with economic development and your desire to actually develop something rather than continuing to rely on the casino. So I'd like to hear what your desires or wishes as an elected official are in that area. Is that too long?
No. Go ahead.
One thing is that, you know, to sit down and talk about what ideas we all have and sort out what ideas would be the best ones. Then to have these ideas put through a professional business team to analyze it, to give us feedback and say, these ones are doable, these ones are not. Then once we do that, put it to the band members so they can ask questions for themselves. Like I said before, Tim Hortons, Power Rain, we weren't given that. They just bought them. And then we found out, they're going to put Tim Hortons in the hotel part. When I heard that, it's like, well, who's going to spend $5 on a fancy cup of coffee when it's free in a casino? Because don't they want them staying in a casino to gamble? Common sense, right? Then they said they're going to put it up by the Y store. It's like, well, that's in the summertime, it's going to be great, but come wintertime, it's going to drop. Failed again. So we need to put these ideas before the band members as well for input, questions, whatever. And hopefully soon, maybe 5, 10 years from now, that we are able to do something, to look at something, to build a business. We need to look at what markets are stable, what markets have the least competition, what business has a better chance of succeeding than the other ones.
I think, too, one area that we really need to look at is marketing. No matter what business we have, an example is, for those of you that know the area, we have the Vince Schutte Bear Sanctuary there. We may not all agree with what it's doing, but there's a lot of people that come through there in the summertime. What we did now is we've put up a sign just before the sanctuary saying, hey, we're here, because people are looking for arts and crafts. They're looking for wild rice. They're looking for things to purchase, because a lot of these people are from out of state or out of the country that are coming. I think there's at least 700 people that go to the Bear Sanctuary every summer. It is seasonal, but we can market ourselves by having them come up to the store and have, well, even like pizzas. We can't get a pizza anywhere up there. You guys have Fortune Bay here, but we can get a pizza from our C-store, but we need to market ourselves better. So marketing is a huge component of economic development that I think we've really been lacking in. So whatever the band membership decides, once we get together and figure out what direction we're going to go, we really have to have good marketing. That's my comment.
Just to add, you know, what Kathy was talking about with the number of people that come up and each summer and look at the bear sanctuary. I haven't seen the report from the Timber Jay. They usually put out a report in the Timber Jay, but I haven't seen that for a couple of years. But one of the last years I did see, there was like 40,000 people that came from Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's a lot of people. And some of those people do come to the reservation and get gas. They'll buy something, a drink or something. And but no, and I know a lot of them asked about crafts. And so if we do end up selling crafts, or people selling their crafts for them, we have to we have to have a lot so we keep a strong inventory. And for those people that come up, because a lot of those people that come up, I mean, you should see the cars that they come up in. They are coming up in really nice SUVs. They're a couple of Cadillacs, and there's some well-off people because they come up and stay at the local resorts. So so that's one thing. Know that any youths that are out there that do arts and crafts, that's something that we can probably maybe look at in the future. And but one thing that some of the band membership we got feedback from was they didn't want strangers coming to the reservation. But again, them are people with dollars, and tourists are going to be. I mean, there's always going to be tourists, no matter where you go. And again, that's what we're trying to do, is capture that dollar. And so again, that's another thing that we as a council can sit down and look at for those of you that are and do arts and crafts. And some of you are really good. I mean, I've seen some of the beadwork and the crafts, and there are some outstanding work. Because I've on behalf of the council, we have bought a number of that artwork and beadwork from band members, and we always give them away as gifts when we have dignitaries that come to the reservation and visit and meet with us. And when they leave, we normally give them a pound of wild rice, and then we normally give them one of those gifts as a memento from coming to the reservation and paying a visit to us. And so keep that in mind, and those of you that are out there that have that ability to do those crafts. And again, we're really open to suggestions, and there was a lot of good comments made here this afternoon, and a lot of good comments that were made this morning. And sure, some were kind of angrily directed at us, but again, we're Indian people, and we don't hold grudges against each other. And a lot of you, we all grew up, and we've known each other since we were little kids to where we're at now. And so I don't take nothing to heart. I don't hold anger towards anyone. I actually go to church every week and every Sunday up at the Baptist church, and I don't have nothing against the culture, but I lost my wife almost 2 years ago now, and when she went the Christian way, and I was been told that if you go the cultural way, you're gonna still go to heaven, but you're gonna be with the people that talk the language. And when you go the Christian way, you're gonna go with the people that just talk the English language. And so when my time comes to leave this earth, whenever that time may be, I want to be there with my wife, because I know my wife is there, and I want to be with her eternally. So that's why I go to the church on the reservation, and like I said, I don't have no disrespect or anything from the cultural stand of view. I know my children, my two sons, Darian and Squidge, they both. My youngest son don't do it quite as often as Squidge, but they both sing on the drum, and they're really cultural and in that way. And they both speak the language, not fluent. They understand bits and pieces of words, and so So I don't interfere with them the way they believe, and they don't interfere with the way I believe. But again, I'm not disrespecting nobody, or this is what's in my heart, and like I said, when my time comes, I wanna be there with my wife when that day comes. But again, and getting back to, and I know Margaret talked about the language, and where her and that young lady I know Dorothy. She's been working in the Virginia School District for a long time, and she's always been an advocate for our Indian kids from not only from Vermilion here, but from no matter where they come from. And it's tough to try to teach, the culture when you start a program and the first night you go there you have maybe 25 or 30 people. Well, then as time goes on, it starts to dwindle. It starts to dwindle. Pretty soon, next thing you know, there's nobody sitting there but the instructors. So it's something that that not only us as tribal leaders, but those of us that are parents, gotta instill in our kids and let them learn that. Like myself, I don't interfere with my sons the way they want to believe, and I commend them. I love them, and I tell them, I said, you do what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you to come with me and sit each week in church. And so they're following the traditional way right now, and I really commend them for that effort. And again, that's just something that we as parents or grandparents, we should instill that in our children and let them take the direction that they want to go. And one of the businesses that we should probably look at is you see all these kids now, they can play all these games, and they're really good at it. My grandson's very good at it. My granddaughter, she's 4 years old. She just turned 4 years old, and she can take her mother's phone and she can pop up little games and pop up little movies on it, and she's really good at it. And there are songs that she sings on there. Maybe that's something that we can sit down with our IT people and get some kind of a program where we can use people like Margaret and other people that are instructors out there, where we can do some kind of instill it in a game, so that them kids play that game online, and it can talk to them and tell them in the language, but then you can switch over and tell them what they're saying in English. So that's something that that we could probably maybe look at. And like I said, because the IT industry is so huge out there. And I was just watching not Fortune Bay, but Good Morning America, and they were talking to some individual, and I just happened to catch it. I was just getting ready to leave and go down to the office, and I come out of the bedroom and I come down and I was going to shut the TV off, and the individual that was talking, he said, within probably 10 years, he said, 40% of America is going to be doing things with online or with cell phones or whatever, where you're going to be people are going to be out of a job because there's going to be computers there to do that job for someone. So that's something that we got to keep heads up on. I know that I'm going to try to go back online and look up what that individual said this morning. Like I said, I just was going to shut it off, and I just caught it, and I clicked it off, and when I clicked it back on, by the time it popped back up on the TV, they were going to another segment. So, but again, that's just another idea that we should look at, teaching those children, because you see all these kids now, no matter who, and everybody in here knows you have kids or you have grandkids, and how familiar or how good they are on those little iPads or iPhones or whatever they have, or those games that they have in their room. That's something that maybe we should maybe try tapping into her and then sell it so we can make it available in any language. You know, the Sioux language is different. The Ojibwe language that we have is a little bit similar to, a little bit different than what they may say over at Red Lake or one of the other tribes like in Wisconsin. You know, the dialect might be pretty much the same, but it might be a little bit different. And so that's something, you know, that someone with some brain should look at and kind of capture and get a foot in the door for that. So, but again, I just want to thank you guys for coming here and listening today, and I hope you all stay warm tonight. And those of you that have a partner, you know, snuggle up to them tonight. And you know, I'll never be able to enjoy that ever again. But again, you know, I just want to thank you guys for coming here today and taking the time to come and voice your concerns. And we'll take all your concerns, and we will put them on paper, and we'll look at those concerns, and we will try to move forward from something that bad has happened, and it's unfortunate it had to happen, and let's move forward and learn from this horrible thing that happened to us. Thank you.
Economic development, I think we were kind of talking about this before, was maybe expansion of our pharmacies, maybe an off-reservation clinic is an idea, but I don't think we can go wrong with those, because it's when we opened this one up over here, the pharmacy here really took off, and I believe that's a good direction we should keep pushing toward, not just on the Vermilion and Net Lake sectors, but out on the state side too. But that's one of the things that I really see as that would really take off and help us. There's other things too, but I think that one, everyone's gonna need healthcare, and it's out there. It ain't gonna go away. Thanks.
I think there is, you know, the band has a potential for growth. I really do. Healthcare is one of them. There's so much areas to look at. What I think we need to do is to get somebody in here to with a business degree and to kind of guide us in a way that's going to be good. That's going to get us to where we want to go. You know, I joke and tease with these guys about they don't want to hear my idea, and probably some of you have heard it, and it'll be on my Facebook page. Taking a poll about medical marijuana. You know, medical marijuana, starting that up. Minnesota is going to be the next state that will legalize smoking it. You know, it's already legalized for medical purposes. They're just going to take it to the next step. We should get it. We should have a jump on this, and we should have plants growing. I mean, that's my personal belief. You know, it's going to take me a little while to convince these guys and to convince the community. But within the next couple of weeks, you will see on my District 2, Pete Boney for District 2 page, you will see a poll out and about. I will be asking people, and I will present it to council. But like I said, there's so much out there for us to do. And we've talked a few things, pharmacy, the treatment, whatever, the medical one. Yeah, medication-assisted treatment, you know, there's money in that. There's money out there all over, but we just have to, we just kind of have to have somebody here, someone a little more smarter than me, to guide us in a way that's going to push it out there, and that's going to, you know, it's going to get the band ahead. We got to rely less on the on the casino and more on diversifying our assets.
I
think-
think that, with that, on the same note, with this business is that, to continue to meet, to let you know how they're doing. Because the Net Lake Sea Store, it shouldn't have gone on that long before they sat down with us. 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it took, to lose 2.7 million. Should have met with us the first year. This is how it's doing. We're losing money. What can we do to fix it or to reduce it? I think that's one of the things that we need to do if we're going to purchase a new business. Just to sit down quarterly and talk about it to let you know how it's doing.
But I'm just wondering if our Heritage Center Museum could be developed more, and then, like you talked about, Kathy, marketed more to the people, the patrons who attend, who stay at Fortune Bay, so that it's developed more and attracts more people. So that's just my 2 cents. But Banoon and I have to go. I've got a meeting. But thank you. And next week we'll be here again, 3 o'clock for Anishinaabe Moen. And Banoon will start with talking circle, and then we'll go on with Anishinaabe Moen lessons. So
Thank you, Dorothy. Good comments.
I think that
yes, and I commend all of you.
to talk about the museum, I'm just going to say it. It was put in a bad position, a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
It should have been put where it was put. It should have been put more where it was accessible.
Dan?
Yeah, I just, on your thought, Kathy, about marketing, I mean, there's businesses you may be looking at maybe developing down the road. We got one right over here. The wilderness sits empty most of the winter. Now, why don't we look at something like that and see what can be put in there and to make money through the winter months? Because all that place does is basically break even during the summer months, let alone make any more money, but it's just sitting there empty.
Yep.
So, I mean, those kind of thoughts I'm looking at. And I did mention a year ago to somebody about the medical marijuana. I had eyes roll, but Colorado was doing quite well in some of their counties. They are in the black. You bet. Yep.
Talking about the wilderness, it's not making money. The projections that were given were way off. It's losing money. It's dead weight. And, but myself, I suggested maybe we should put slot machines in there for the summer months, so when the golfers are there, they can play some machines or something. That's my thought.
Okay. Vicki? Hold on, Dan.
Well, first off, Jackie remembered what she was going to ask, so before I forget, I'm going to ask it.
Okay.
In the future, if we get any other funding or funds, lump sum funds, like say from the Nelson Act, could that be put more towards economic development rather than like startup funds for another casino or, different economic development projects?
It's a
Rather than dishing it out as per capita.
That would be, I think, something that the band would have to, vote on. Where, a lot of people are,
We didn't vote on the other stuff, though. I mean,
well, that's a different, yeah. I mean, there's different councils and whatever, so I know that when I was, I don't know where, I was a meeting in Mille Lacs, and they do monthly per capitas, and that's considered income, okay? Our 1854 is not considered income. It's affecting their students and their student funding, and they're having difficulties because of those per capitas with that student funding, and being penalized because they have that money coming in. So I think when it comes to any type of per capita or anything where, I think the band membership should have input along with that decision, so.
Okay. Another question I had was, well, as far as the economic development, I think we have to look at various other ideas rather than just another casino. You know,
Oh,
another
yeah, we
casino
won't-
is just
we
not
can't
our
afford another
answer.
casino.
And I don't think we'd even have the funds to secure another casino. That being said, also, as far as the wilderness goes, the wilderness basically was set up, and in the planning stages, it was to be set up to be run about 2 or 3 years by a consulting company. What's the name of the company? Kemper Sports.
Yes.
Kemper Sports is supposed to actually train in some band members to run the wilderness, and that was never done. So at this point, one of the main reasons that the wilderness is losing money is because it's run by Kemper Sports and we're paying out consultant wages. Basically what it does is it takes right off the profit. So the profit basically is not there.
We've, with regards to the golfing industry in Minnesota, there really isn't any golf course that makes money. They're basically, like Giants Ridge is funded by IRRB, and they pour a lot of money into Giants Ridge. And they're not making any profit. Because of our seasons, if we were like Arizona and had year-round seasons, it would be different. But we're limited with our golfing ability. But just so you know, our Kemper Sports agreement is up this year, right now, in April, and we are looking at renegotiating or asking for bids from other companies with regards to the golf course management. So we will be looking at that very soon. Thanks, Vic. Jackie, who's got the mic?
I do. So does the golf course at least help bring in more hotel and
Yes.
gaming
Yes.
revenue?
What it is what we're trying to do is not market gambling or the casino. We're trying to market our destination. I mean, this is God's country. I mean, we've got a beautiful lake. We've got beautiful fishing. Fortune Bay expanded to do the ice fishing houses now. But, you know, everything intertwines with regards to at Fortune Bay. If we have golfers come, they got to find somewhere to stay. So of course we want them to stay at the hotel. Then they're going to eat. Then they hopefully go throw a little bit money in the machines. But yeah, it does bring business to the resort area. So, any other questions? Oh, 3 of them. All across here.
So you brought up the Heritage Center and it being located in a bad spot. I used to work there until I got laid off. But I'll tell you that part of the problem is marketing.
Marketing.
Okay, I had a customer came down one day, a lady and her husband. She said, we didn't even know you were here. We've been coming down from Canada for years. She said, and we didn't even know you're here. I said, well, how did you discover that we were here? And she said, my husband was out for a walk. We have pamphlets that we put in the lobby of the resort. I went down there one day and there was one in there. That's our advertising. I looked at Fortune Bay's magazine thing that they have. We're not listed in there. You know, location, that's a beautiful location. It's got a lot of, you know, things going on there. But if nobody knows, they see what they drive into Fortune Bay and there's this little brown sign that's about yay big that says Heritage Museum ahead. That's it. That's our advertising. We're not on the big neon flashing sign up by the road. And then we're gonna get into staffing, consistency, being open, being able to be open. People wanna come, it's not open. That gets past, well, they might not even be open, we're not gonna go down there. And I know it's a big issue, it's been mentioned to me, that, you know, there's the thought that the council would like to see it closed down because they invest I think it's actually less now, $170,000 or something it costs a year to run it. When Gary Donald was in there, it was over $250,000 he would invest into it. I want the council to think about our items that are there. If y'all decide to close that down, that's maybe Dave won't understand, but there's a spiritual aspect to this, and a lot of our elders will understand that. I think you need to really take a really close look at how it's been run, who's running it, the marketing and everything, before you make the decision to close the doors on it permanently, because it's vital, it's cultural.
It's cultural, it's educational,
culture.
plus it's a
It's
depository
everything.
for all our.
It's the foundation of who we are,
Yep.
culture, our
Yep.
culture.
Yep,
So,
and the items that are down at the Heritage Center, I actually had a chance to go downstairs into where those older items are. Oh my God, it's amazing. It's actually just amazing, the stuff they have down there. So I believe marketing is the key for the Heritage Center. I agree.
No, I think that, the Heritage Center too, they could go up to the radio station and maybe try to work out a deal where the radio station will run some underwriting announcements for the Heritage Center. And on the flip side, the Heritage Center could list KBFT somewhere in the building, do a trade for services where it doesn't cost you guys anything and it doesn't cost KBFT anything. When I worked at KBFT, I've done it numerous times with businesses that didn't have the money to do that. Myself, I've been down to the Heritage Center for the storytelling. I've been downstairs. I got to see my grandmother Jessie Drift's drum down there that they have. I know they have birch bark scrolls. So yeah, it is important.
Beautiful. Dan?
Are you gonna have other meetings for business development coming up?
Once the government opens, yeah.
Because I got a lot I could ask,
okay.
but I'll do it then.
But yeah, okay, thank you. Oh, Kurt.
I just, and then concerning the Heritage Center, that was, when that was built, years ago, that was done too, our elders were the ones that recommended where to put it, and the reason why it was put where it was at, because there was, at one time, there's a gold mine area right behind it, and so they were gonna try to use that as a kind of a historical part of the Heritage Museum at the time, and so that's why it's at the location that it's currently at, and it depends again, location, and I know that the Fortune Bay has tried numerous times to let people know that the Heritage Center is there where it's at, and I'm not sure if just there's no follow through once the pamphlets are gone or whatever, and that's something that should probably we have all those TVs and all over the casino and in the lobby of the hotel. That's something that probably could just flash every so often. Let them know that once we get back and get it opened, that's something that we could easily try to remedy, and hopefully that'll fix that, because I know at times there was different high schools and that would come up and visit and tour the Heritage Center and learn about the history of our band membership here. So that's something that we can again straighten out once we get back online.
Kurt?
Yeah, in regards to your business development, Fortune Bay, are they the development corporation?
They're a business under the Development Corporation, yes.
Okay, so, and you were talking about different businesses or development areas that you might want to consider to broaden assets. Is that correct, the council? So, all right, Udovich Garbage? Okay. Did the council know that the Bois Forte band was approached to be purchased.
Yes.
So I was directed to the Development Corporation, and they just shot it down. So I mean, that was a whole structured clientele base. They're basically handing us the keys, and we need to take care of garbage. Everybody does.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of curious. I wasn't sure who shot it down.
Okay.
When was this presented to the Development Corporation?
About last spring, early summer.
Okay.
So
I
seemed like
believe,
a-
you know, I think, and if I, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was never officially presented to the Development Corps. We did receive a letter, the council did, regarding Udovich garbage. But I don't know if it was ever brought officially to the Development Corps meeting itself. So we can check on that, but I know that last spring or whatever, there was, you know, the rebuilding of our finances. So that kind of was at a bad time when it came, but I don't remember it coming to an official meeting, so. I know we got the letter. Yeah, but garbage is something that's always gonna be there too. Yep. Any other questions? Comments? Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate you coming and your comments and questions, and it's been very enlightening, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Miigwech.
Miigwech.